Welcome to One on One with the Grim One, the black metal party that never stops. And I am your host, the Slayer of Posers, the most electrifying man in co-ops entertainment, the Necrosexual. And joining me on this dark side chat, this is one band that I paid extra special attention to because I have a very small but dedicated group of necromaniacs, and they said, hey, Necrosexual, you got to check these dudes out. They got a new album out. It's called No Dawn for Man. So please welcome Feminazgul. How the hell are you?
Good.
I'm doing all right, thanks.
So congratulations on your hellacious new album. It came out earlier this year, but was recently re-released on vinyl and other formats. So how the hell does it feel to have the second poser smashing album out, dominating the charts and dominating Bandcamp?
I guess it's a bit surreal because pretty much through most of my metal lifetime, I've always just played the support role, like as in promoting or throwing shows together or doing radio, like spinning the music, but I've never quite played the artist role. So this is definitely new territory, and the fact that it's done so well, not only at the beginning of the release, and then also this vinyl release, it's incredible, really.
Yeah, I had no idea that so many people were going to be into this like weird fucking shit that we decided to summon up last winter. Like, we kept just kind of being like, all right, should we do this other weird thing? Like, can I put an accordion in it now? But it's not like a folk metal thing. And just finding people being excited about it has been really amazing, because it's all just the weird shit that sits around in my head. Actually having people hear that and having it resonate with people took me by surprise, but I'm very happy for it.
It's one of the first things I noticed about this new album was the bird people on the cover. And then the second thing was the accordion, like you mentioned, coming in with a different, out of left field, some unexpected brutality right there. And this is a very versatile, atmospheric, far-reaching album that has a lot of instruments, not just guitar and drums and screeching, but accordion, some violins, and some other stringed instruments, I believe. And Margaret, you're the one-person army behind the instrumental attack of Feminazgul. So what was that like for you, delivering all the goods on the instrumental side of things?
So I did get help on the violin and the viola and the theremin from Mur, who came on a couple of the tracks. But yeah, it's been I mean, I've been trying to make metal for a really long time, and the first EP came out a couple years ago, and I've been playing metal, and I've been playing a lot of other genres for a long time, but it was the first time I really with this album really just kind of let myself go, where I was like, yeah, no, I'm just gonna see what the fuck I can do with, like, the main instrument that people ask is I should bring it in here, but the Dane axe is the weapon. I mean, the instrument that people ask about the most, and it's the sample in the first song. Is I'm just literally sitting there with a Dane axe, which is a Viking two-handed axe, and hitting it with a piece of metal, and that's like one of the main sounds of the first track, and just like really letting myself play with. I mean, it's funny because like all the different instruments, they matter, but really what it came down to is last fall I finally got a fucking digital piano, like an actual weighted key piano, and the whole album exists because I finally just let myself like actually really write with a piano instead of always just writing on guitar or writing on like little keyboards.
Well, thank you to that electric piano, who we owe a lot to with this new album. And as the great Paul Stanley once said, it's not a crime to be good to yourself. So treat yourself to that new instrument, all you people out there watching and listening. You never know what might come from that upgrade. And Laura, I want to know, you are the mouthpiece of Feminazgul. So what is your secret for the screechy vocals that strike fear into the hearts of wimp and impish men?
honestly cannot give you any advice because I literally just learned through mimicry. Probably the only piece of advice I can give you is if it hurts, don't do it. But I get that all the time. Like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. I just tap into a place of emotion, and then also at the same time something to do with my diaphragm and the way that I, position, my throat. But I really don't have any sort of I've never taken any lessons. I've taken some advice from people like one of my closest friends is a opera singer, and I've taken some, just tips from her, but I can't give any advice other than if it hurts, don't do it.
With vocals and with many other things in life, if it hurts, just don't do it.
Basically.
Although one of the best parts of the vocals on the whole album, I think, is when Laura screams, bury the antler with the stag. And that happened after we'd been recording for hours, and I'd just been making Laura do take after take. And her voice was just shot, and all she had left was this high screeching vocal. And I was like, can you do it? Can you do it? And Laura let out this, I don't know, that's one of my favorite moments on the whole fucking album.
And it's so funny because there are people who just like shout that quote to me like on the internet. And it's like, it's a complete fluke. Like it just never meant to exist.
Instant classic. Lyrically, what were the inspirations for this new album?
Ironically, this album came out, we wrote it all before the pandemic hit, but it's an album about death. It's an album about, there's a goddess I worship named Ea, which is the name of the first track, Ea, the mother of death. And she's a goddess of darkness, death, rot, decay, but also like rebirth. And I wanted to write some spells, and I wanted to talk about the things that I consider holy. The song "The Rot in the Field is Holy" comes from that. And so that's like the kind of core of it. On the songs that I wrote is basically about Ea and finding our own, like challenging people to find their own ideas of what is and isn't holy, rather than like specifically embracing or rejecting existing ideologies, existing religions. But Laura wrote one of the songs too, and then some of the songs I wrote have nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah. A lot of depression and heartache and anger and just lots of sad girl things.
And there's like, it's funny because people will try to claim that, leftist metal isn't like brutal enough, and it's too I don't remember. There's someone came at us once and was like, oh, this is all too like weak or whatever. And I was like, we literally have lines about, or like, where's the hate? That's what people would ask. They'd be like, why do you all try and stop us from being hateful? And I'm like, no, I fucking hate you. I fucking hate Nazis. And that's a legitimate form of hatred as far as I'm concerned. And I just love that people would come at us being like, where's the hate? And I'm like, do you mean the song that ends with the line, I will carry this hatred to the grave? Is that the part that isn't hateful enough? I don't understand. Yeah.
And you talked about making an album full of witchy spells, and of course Halloween just happened. It's a state of mind, but on the calendar year it just happened recently, and here we are in the fall. Of course, the winter is approaching, the days are getting shorter, the veil is thin. So were there any other acts of witchy business that you partaked, or that you partook, that you that you participated in this year that you care to elaborate on besides this new album?
Laura, you got anything?
You know what?
There's no right or wrong answer.
I didn't do anything like in the summer or fall other than just, work, because that's all that we could, do. And here we are, possibly going back into another lockdown. So it's probably just going to be more work. But Yeah, I didn't do anything cool or witchy or occultish, unfortunately. I don't know. All I did Halloween was wear a cat onesie and serve beer against my better judgment. So
What about you, Margaret?
I've been working on with another one of my bands, a neo-folk band that I'm in with someone named Jack. The band's called Ulcereth, and it's named after a holiday that we made up. And it's basically the last phase of the moon before the moon goes new. The last little sliver of moonlight is a really good time to reject the things that are not working for you. You basically take a day, an evening to say like, this is the shit that isn't working for me. And you can write it down on a piece of paper and burn it. You can just think about it. You can tell people these are the things I'm trying to reject, with the idea that the new moon is of course always historically a good time to set intentions and say, this is the kind of shit I'm trying to bring in this next month. But I think that an important part, we always talk about the positive shit, but we don't talk enough about the negative shit. And so I think that learning to reject things is important. So I'm really into the Ulcereth. And then also I fucking lost my mind. Laura had to work all the time. And then I live in a cabin that I built in the woods and didn't see anyone for months. So I built instruments and I started writing a fictional language and wrote a lot of prayers. So there will be new music coming out that's going to come out of this lockdown and from all the shit I've been up to.
World building taken to an extreme new level in the pandemic. And you said that you made up this holiday Ulcereth?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like Festivus, but the black metal version.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've said before that the occult and witchcraft is sort of like the freeform jazz of spirituality. Just make it up. Just make it up as you go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's you can paint it however you want. You can be like, well, I'm listening to the universe and it tells me to do these things, but that means making shit up.
Yeah,
and
improvise.
I absolutely believe in that power.
And I wanted to mention before, you talked about your Dane axe, and if there's one thing I love, it's show and tell. So by all means, if you do have any instruments that were on this album or that's just lying around that maybe you made, we can certainly edit it out or edit the downtime in between, but feel free to show them off because I interviewed Lantern a few months ago from Finland, and of course they played a cigar box solo on their new album. So if you got
nice.
Yeah, show us your axes.
I can show you the most finished shit I own that I made. I built a kantele, which is a Finnish. It's a Finnish zither.
Wow, you just built that?
Yeah, I built it from a kit. And I don't normally keep them all within arm's length. I built this psaltery that I didn't think that I'd be playing it on a thing, so I didn't actually wax the bow. That's a psaltery.
Wow.
And then, being me, I made up my own instrument. This is called a goblin box. It has 15 strings, and they're all tuned the same.
What? Instant chorus effect.
This is my favorite thing. It's not very useful.
It sounds cool though.
Yeah.
And so all of these are on the split we're doing with the Wendon that's going to come out this winter. But the Dane axe is outside. Don't have much room in my cabin.
So this is one-on-one with the Grim One, and every time I speak to my guest or guests, because this is a triple threat interview, I like to ask them about one album that holds a special place in their heart. So tell me about it.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Being placed on the spot like this, crap. I I've got, man, I could name like a handful of albums that, or some of the goofy shit that I've learned, to mimic and how I got to a certain point with my vocals. I guess some of the first, maybe songs that I tried to mimic was Insiferum's EP Dragon Heads. And that's kind of like where I first started to really like come into my own. And I don't know, I guess mid-range, mid to high range, melodic death or melodic black metal, Dissection's Storm of the Light's Bane, but we all know that's sort of a little bit problematic nowadays. And I guess also Kaladin Brood, Echoes of Battle is probably those are probably the most influential albums for me personally.
I'd probably say Malevolent Grain by Wolves in the Throne Room. I feel like that was like one of the first things I heard where I was just like, oh, black metal can do some really important shit to your brain. And then I would say just Summoning in general kind of was like, I wasn't specifically, I was more of a goth kid for a long time. And then in my mid-20s, basically, I got really into metal. And it was pretty much Agalok, Summoning, and Wolves in the Throne Room that got me like actually into metal. Although now I actually like Kaladin Brood more. I think I asked Laura once, I was like, shit, who's that band? But they're Summoning, but they're just better than Summoning. They're like, which now hopefully everyone's going to hate me for saying maybe. But whenever I say that to someone,
there's going to be a ton of people who agree, I think.
Yeah. If you ever forget the name of Kaladin Brood, ask someone, what is the name of the band that sounds like Summoning but is better at it? And to be clear, Summoning came first. And like, it's very obvious that our music owes a lot to Summoning. So
the rumor is that they're too busy being Visigoth right now. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How does that work? Yeah, I see how it is. So in the future, of course, you have this new split coming out. Do you have any intentions of live performances when those are a thing again?
I think so. We will have to, considering we've added all of these new instruments and whatnot, and we have performed, as a duo together before, and it's fun, but it does lack, when there's not a drummer or a guitarist, because, pretty much we can put all the extra stuff, into backing tracks, and, but we will eventually have to sit down and, figure out how we're going to do the live shows, and whenever touring becomes a thing again, we'll have to figure out who's going to tour with us and whatnot, and, who may or may not be, permanent members or, part-time members or whatnot.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's probably going to be easier for us to tour than like play a lot of shows locally, because I think if we actually arrange an entire tour, we're going to be able to pull people from all over the country to play for us. And because one of the things with Feminazgul is that we want to make sure that with this band specifically, neither of us like believe this in a general sense about the world, but with this band specifically, we're trying to have it either be all women or at least no cis men. And that limits the pool of people substantially in metal. And so we have people who've been talking about wanting to play with us, but they all live all over the place. And so that limits it, which is a shame, because it was fun playing shows live, because we, do a bunch of ritual shit and like just fucking, I love the ability to transform spaces, and Laura is an amazing fucking performer. I kind of just
thanks.
Like guitar, drag a harp on stage and make the sound person upset.
But now it's like a harp guitar.
Yeah. I actually I strapped and this one isn't even, I can't go grab it. It's not here. It doesn't fit my cabin at all. I strapped a keyboard to the side of my to my harp. I velcroed it to the side so that I can play distorted synthesizers while I play harp on stage.
It is pretty cool to watch, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and don't forget the Goblin Box. Woo!
Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun.
The funny, interesting thing about performing is that we've actually had a lot of straight cis men asked to play for us, and I guess if we ever did that, I think the workaround would have to be we muddy them up and dress them up like slaves, but it's so surprising how many men, cis, straight men want to play for us. It's hysterical.
Does it feel good to say no to them?
At times,
Sometimes.
yeah, actually, but you know, we've turned down some pretty pretty amazing guitar players, but
Yeah.
you know, we'll see what happens when it comes to tour, but it would
Yeah.
probably be easier to you know, make a collective of people that, you know, we're trying to, you know, appeal to, you know, target demographic. But
Indeed, well, I respect you guys walking the walk and backing it up with your lineup or future lineups. And of course, we're talking about live shows. So I want to know, take us back in time. What was one of your most memorable concert memories, whether it was as a spectator or on stage as a performer?
Shit.
ooh, oh,
Ooh.
yeah, I've all of 70K. I've been on 70K twice. That is just, it's an ordeal, an exercise, but it's also pretty amazing. But let's see. I think probably one of my favorite shows as a performer was, I think, one of our performances at Static Age. But there was also a really good one at the auditorium where it was just kind of a big gay metal fest, because it was you know, it was us, Flomox, and Bled to Submission. You know, Bled to Submission has some queer members, and then Flomox is fronted by a trans girl. So we've had some really great shows, but it's hard to pin down personally, you know, as a spectator.
I think that the shows that have meant the most to me maybe are the ones that are, it's like weird shit in the woods.
Yeah. All right.
Like I think of one of my friends who plays basically anonymously, just basically plays shows acoustic metal. I don't even love acoustic metal like audibly, you know, like it's they just sit there and they, you know, play the shit out of, they tremolo pick a fucking acoustic guitar, tear up their tendons in their arm, paint themselves up with like burnt cork, sit on a log and sing songs. And even though it's like not always my favorite musical style, that shit really sticks with me. But then on the other end of it, I also like, I think about the like yeah, the kind of transformative nature of like fests and shit like that. Like the first time I went to a metal fest was the fucking Helsinki Metal Fest in Finland in 1999. And, you know, and it just was like the first time I had been around basically the metal community in a larger sense. And that felt pretty transformative. Just like, I don't know, just like people willing to live a kind of different, it at least appeared to me as a teenager, to people living a different way of fucking going about their life and like carrying meaning in a different way. And then I'm always like, I'm basically here for all the witchy shit. One of my favorite moments in a show we've played was, you know, the ritual that we tie into the show, some of the shows, is basically a ritual of atonement for men who maybe don't necessarily feel guilty for being men, because there's nothing inherently wrong with being a man, but instead like for their own participation in like patriarchal systems. And they basically come up and kneel in front of Laura and get painted on their forehead with berry juice or whatever we have going on that evening. And the first time that we did that, and we seeded it with a couple, we went around and found a couple people beforehand. We went to our friends basically, and we're like, hey, are you willing to do this really weird shit on stage? And it worked. And it like, it was the first time that I was like, oh yeah, we're like fucking doing a thing here. You know, this is like having an impact on these people who are coming up and like thinking about their own participation in terrible systems. And that was a transformative moment for me as a performer. And we don't always do it at the shows. We kind of feel it out. We basically are like, because it's kind of cheesy, right? And there's this whole thing with metal that I love, that like metal is this weird balance of like being really fucking earnest about really cheesy shit. And sometimes we admit that it's just cheesy and we just fucking laugh with it. And that's awesome. And I kind of tend to be the one who's like dead serious all the fucking time. And Laura's like far more willing to get into a Cthulhu onesie and like do harsh metal vocal covers of REM and shit.
Yeah.
And which is a sight to see. But I love that about metal. I love that balance between like, even when we're like doing cheesy shit, we're kind of still doing it earnestly. I don't know. I love that I get to participate in that now. I mean, I've always been participating as not as a voyeur, because it's participatory to be in the audience. I will say the worst fucking thing that I got annoyed at a goddamn show was I went to go see Dragon Force. And it was just like, I'm having a good time. Dragon Force is a perfect example of a cheesy band that's totally enjoyable. And then they're like, we're going to split the crowd up and have half the people are going to cheer for the guitar player and half the people are going to cheer for the guitar player. I'm totally into that shit. It's totally fun. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, don't go over to that side. That's the gay side. And so like me and all my friends are like, shit, we got to go over to the gay side now.
Good instinct to go to the gay side, because you know the gays know how to
I didn't even know I was gay yet. I thought I was like a straight boy who just really liked women's clothes.
Right.
But I knew where I belonged. When someone divides up the crowd like that, you know where you belong in that kind of environment.
Grinder, hungry for meat. Heavy metal heritage with Judas Priest. I mean, who would have thought, right? And you talked about the Rite of Atonement. When the Necrosexual band plays, we have a ritual of tone dialing, followed by a ritual of tuning up the guitars for 5 minutes too long. And then the ritual of not quite getting the levels right. And then, oh shit.
That's an important ritual.
Yeah. So but I'm glad that Feminazgul has your occult rituals on tap for whenever shows start up again. Keep it weird. And what about you, Laura? So we heard about Margaret. I'm sorry about that. What about you, Laura? We heard about from Margaret. I want to know, Laura, what was that one period in your life where you realized that you wanted to become a heavy metal lifer?
Well, I guess it sort of started. I had a lot of unregulated internet time when I was a kid.
Were you homeschooled?
No, I was not homeschooled, but my father worked for IBM, so I always had access to computers all the time, so, getting on, I was, 9 years old in 1998, so, learned to use the internet, went into some very crazy and seedy places when I was young, but, whatever, that's not a reflection at all of my parents. That's just me starting shit and getting mischievous. But anyways, I eventually learned about Children of Bodom in, 2002, and I was sort of just hooked, Don't Fear the Reaper, their cover, Follow the Reaper. Sorry, I'm an idiot. Anyways, and that kind of, I didn't have like that normal, metal upbringing that I think a lot of Americans have, where they go through, their Metallica, their Slayer phase. Like I was literally thrown into like Swedish Melodeath, and from there progressed into the more European styles rather than, some of the other stuff that I think that other people get raised on. Just didn't have that. And but I guess I became like involved with like shows when I started going to them at like age 15. Metalcore was kind of the thing when I was, becoming a teenager. So of course I had that, 6 months of metalcore, but got over that. And and I guess I've always just tried to make myself involved in either, bands or promoting other people's stuff. And I knew I could do vocals, but it was just finding the right fit. I mean, I definitely have been in bands that have never gotten off the ground, have never left the rehearsal space, but it's started like the tender age of 13, and that's where I've been. So
you grew up so fast. And it's not a phase I'm going through, although I'm happy to hear that metalcore was just a phase you were going through in the early
I think a lot of people will be happy for that.
What is on the horizon for Feminazgul aside from this upcoming split? Anything else you guys are excited about in the near future or distant future?
I guess whenever we're done with this split, we'll probably be just working on the next album. We're excited to see how far this vinyl goes. And as far as we know, out of probably maybe like 470 units that are available, 160 sold. Like, that's incredible to me. So, and that's both in America and Europe. So,
Yes, congratulations. What about you, Margaret?
I'm excited about enough of the pandemic passing that I can get to making music videos with Laura. A lot of weird shit that we have all planned out. And yeah, I'm excited to write the next album and just see, I don't know, see what the fuck can happen with any of it. Like, there's just so much. There's not enough hours in the day. It's terrible. I just want to make music all the fucking time, but I keep wanting to do everything else also, and also including eating. But yeah, so a split, a new album, music videos, eventually a tour, hopefully.
one day.
Yeah, right. Keep those fingers crossed. Keep doing those spells under the full moon or the darkest hour of the night. And what do you want to say to all the heavy metal hellraisers who are watching from their lairs at home?
God, I know I've said some cool stuff in other interviews before. But,
Bury the horns with the stag.
Oh man, that's a whole can of worms, that song. But that's, yeah. But anyway, well, be good. If you're getting into this game, definitely do your research and know your audience. Don't take shit from haters, but learn to take criticism. And basically just do what you want, see what happens. Art isn't about making money, it's about self-fulfillment and seeing what comes out of your soul, basically.
I would say when you present what you're doing, present it like you know what you're doing. Like when you show someone a draft of a song and you're like, hey, I'm trying something new and I don't know how I feel about it. And this happened a lot while I was working on the EP and then also this album. We show it to people and be like, oh, I don't know, is this really mixed right? Like, this is kind of weird, and then I just ignored them. And then we just put it out anyway. And we made it as good as we could. And we listened to actual criticism. But there's so many fucking naysayers. And there's so many people who are gatekeeping the metal scene away from people who've been marginalized out of it. And just fucking ignore them. And like, do what you think you should fucking do. And then, and maybe it won't resonate with people, but maybe it will. Like, I've put out plenty of fucking music that no one goddamn listens to. But you keep doing it long enough and you're going to put out something that people care about. And I guess so I would say just like, do what you want instead of what people tell you, both mainstream society and subcultural society, instead of what people tell you should be doing. Which is always, think for yourself instead of listening to me. It's always complicated, but that's what I would say. That's the main thing I've learned with all this.
Indeed. Well, listen to Feminazgul's new album, No Dawn for Man, a hellacious affair. And I want to say thank you to Laura and Margaret for going one-on-one with the grim one. It has been my pleasure. The Necrosexual. And I'll see you in hell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.